So it's finally here. This is the video rundown of all of the different meal replacements. It's quite a long video, so what I've done is I've broken it up into segments. So if you check out the description below, you'll see all the chapters, so you can skip to the bits that you want to if you just want to see individual bits or my conclusion. But otherwise, it's just a run through of everything. I hope you like it, hope you enjoy it, and yeah, let's see which one wins. So, meal alternatives. What are they? Who are they for? What purpose do they provide? Essentially, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's an alternative to a meal. So, I started doing this probably about 2 years ago, maybe slightly more. And I started with Huel, which is probably the best known. It's the one most people have heard of. I think it's probably one of the bigger selling ones. But essentially, it's just a way of replacing a meal with a shake. It's got all your calories, it's got all your nutrients, it's got everything that you need to replace a meal. I guess it's slightly similar if we've got any 80s babies. It's similar to Slim Fast back in the 90s when that released, although slightly nicer. It can be a number of things. Some people use it for weight loss, some people use it for weight maintenance, and some people use it for weight gain. Because the idea is that it will do exactly what you want it to do. You can drink more, you'll gain weight. You can drink less, you'll lose weight. You can drink what you need to survive, and you'll maintain your weight. I use it primarily because I'm lazy. I guess it's probably the easiest way to put it. I replace my breakfast almost every day with it because when I'm working, breakfast is the easiest thing for me to just forget about and go to work without having it. Having breakfast is a really good thing. Now that I'm commuting to work, it just becomes slightly easier to actually take a shake with me, or in some cases take the Huel hot and savory with me, just something so that I can mix it up at work. It's also cheaper than going out and buying sandwiches, and it's easier than making sandwiches. So it's a combination of ease of use and speed, I guess. What some people choose to do is replace every meal with it. Now, I'm not sure I could do that. I'm not sure that I could decide that I wasn't going to have any food. I really like my food, and so I've had a few people commenting saying, oh, I couldn't do this, I like my food too much. So do I. Love my food, absolutely adore it. If you've watched some of the other videos, you will have seen the food that I cook for myself. I still eat exactly what I want to in the evening. This is for the meals at the weekends. I'll make myself a nice porridge in the morning, but during the week, I just don't have the time or the patience to be able to get things sorted out. That's the basic purpose of it, and Huel, like I say, is probably the most famous of them. They've been through, I think they're now on the 3rd iteration of their normal powder. They've also got a black powder, which is, it's not actually a black powder, it's called Huel Black, but it's still a powder-based one that is higher protein, fewer carbs. They've got hot and savory, which I really like, which is exactly as it says on the tin. It's a hot and savory alternative, and it's the only one of the meal alternatives that I'm looking at today that does a savory version. And then they also do ready to drink, they do bars, but we won't worry about those bits at the moment. Huel, very straightforward. The website is really easy to navigate and buy stuff from. It's difficult to get information from. That's one thing I would say. It's very difficult to work out how many a day you should be having, how many. It will tell you if you look how many calories are in each one, but it's not overly obvious. The packaging is good, simple, straightforward, and yeah, it works very well. That's where I started, and it was the first big video that kind of took off on this topic, and so that's kind of the gold standard. That's probably the easiest way to think of this. So Queal was the second one that I tried, and in complete transparency, originally I tried them because they actually reached out to me. They'd seen the Huel review and they said, we think you might quite like this. So they sent over a packet to be able to try, and I genuinely loved it. I've actually paid for every single one since. So although my introduction to them was paid for on their behalf, yeah, it's good. I think it's from the Netherlands. So there are some slight issues with delays in terms of Brexit at the moment, but they've got a really nice range of flavours. They do a powder, they do a porridge, and they do bars. The porridge I wasn't super impressed with, but that's because I really love my own porridge. And the bars, I really liked them. They had no sweetness to them at all. There was one that was nuts, dark chocolate and sea salt, and it was very, it was almost savoury. It was lovely. I quite liked it. I think Emma went in expecting something sweet, and it just wasn't that. But yeah, Queal was the second one I tried, and yeah, that was quite an interesting one. I like that one. And then we get YFood, and YFood is, again, a relatively new company. Their branding gets a little bit confusing because it's not entirely clear whether it's YFood or This Is Food. So it's one of the two. I generally, YFood seems to be the name of the company, and then they brand everything with This Is Food. They seem to have started much more with the pre-mixed ready-to-drink stuff, and their ready-to-drink stuff, it was absolutely brilliant, actually. I was really impressed with that. My biggest issue with all the ready-to-drink stuff is I just don't seem to have enough space to be able to store it. If you want to have ready-to-drink, you're going to need sort of generally five of these a day, and it very quickly adds up in terms of the amount of space it all takes up. But they also do powders, and their powders come in a similarly big bag to the Huel. It's the big sort of 17 servings, and they've got, a good range of flavors. I was particularly impressed actually with the flavors of the YFood, and the texture of the ready-to-drink stuff was quite good. So yeah, probably one of the better textures in terms of ready-to-drink stuff that I've had. And then you got the Protein Works. So the Protein Works has been around for a while. They've been, I think, making protein-based drinks primarily, surprisingly enough, based on their name, since 2014. And they've got, confusingly, 3 meal replacement systems. Diet Meal Replacement, Diet Meal Replacement Extreme, and Complete 360 Meal. And the Complete 360 Meal is a 400 calorie option. Diet Meal Replacement Extreme is 200 calories, and the Diet Meal Replacement is 270. They work brilliantly well as a snack, the Diet Meal Replacement and Diet Meal Replacement Extreme, but the Complete 360 Meal, which they don't seem to push as much, is the one that's a more direct comparison to Huel and those sorts of things. So one of the more recent ones I tried is called Manna, and Manna is a relative newcomer to the market, I think, as far as I can find from my research. It's only got 2 flavors, and it's a very simple, very straightforward approach. They've got 2 flavors. They do a powder and they do a ready mixed drink. They're from the Czech Republic. I would say it was probably one of the slowest in terms of delivery, but it's very simple packaging. It's very streamlined. I'd say, if anything, it's probably one of the most sort of, I hate the term female friendly, but it's a real marketing buzzword. So yeah, it's got very subtle, understated branding, and it's a very simple system. So that's all the meal alternatives introduced and the basic background. Now I'm going to do 2 breakdowns of the alternatives. The first one I'm going to do is the quantitative breakdown, which is just purely costs, packet sizes, those sorts of things. These are kind of the facts that you can't really argue with. And then I'm going to give you my qualitative stuff, which is how it tastes, how it feels. And that's purely my own opinion. You will be able to judge your own opinion. You will be able to form your own views on those sorts of things. So take that bit with a pinch of salt. This is purely just the hard data. I'm not going to run through everything because otherwise this video would be way too long. But in terms of cost, actually, they're all, roughly speaking, the same sort of cost. Some of them are sold in euros, which then becomes you have to translate how much they're actually costing. And all of these prices will vary if you get subscriptions. So Huel offers a 10% discount if you get a subscription. One of them offers a 15% subscription discount. Some of them don't offer any subscription discount, and some of them, they get cheaper the more you buy. Essentially, the cheapest option is actually Queal, but you have to take that on with a slight, it's not a pinch of salt. They recommend 700 calories a meal, which means you're only getting 3 meals a day. All of the others are generally 400 calories a meal. Now, if you wanted to go for a direct comparison, it's really straightforward. You get 5 out of a packet rather than 3 out of a packet. So although when you first look at it, it looks one of the more expensive ones, for a direct comparison, Queal is the cheapest. The most expensive is the Protein Works 360 meals. Those ones are the most expensive one. And I actually think
The Protein Works and Manna, I think I'm going to kind of wipe them out. I actually didn't enjoy them as much as the others. I think the Protein Works is, I know this is the quantitative bit, but it was way too sweet, it's way too expensive. I didn't like it that much. The Manna took way too long to arrive and I didn't like the flavour. But those two are generally more expensive anyway. So the most expensive options are up to about £1.60 a meal. The cheapest ones are down to £1.31. So we're not talking about a huge difference. Pack size is where you do start to see differences. So you either get systems like Huel and YFood that they come in big 1.5 kilo bags. And the problem with that is it's really difficult to try some without being lumbered with 17 meals. Queal and Protein Works and Manna all do smaller versions, so you can try it. Queal, what annoys me slightly is they only do the small versions. Calories per serving, they're all generally, you can work them all out to 400. The Diet Meal Replacement Extreme is 200 calories, but I don't see that as a manageable meal replacement. They say you should only replace 2 to 3 meals a day with that, and 600 calories a day is not enough to survive on. So it's a useful snack, but that's about it. Queal, like I say, they recommend 700 calories because they're thinking you'll have 3 meals a day. But actually, you can break it down really easily into a 400 calorie if you want to be able to just measure it against the others. In terms of flavours, generally, most of them come with lots of options. Huel has between 6 and 8 flavours in their different ranges. Queal has 9 standard and 2 limited. YFood 7 flavours. The only one that falls down on this is Manna, which has 2 flavours, which are original and choco, neither of which are brilliant. Protein Works, the one that is the most direct comparison, which is the 360 meal, only has 3 flavours, but the Diet Meal Replacement Extreme has 16. But to try all 16, and that's going to take you a long time. And then in terms of which ones have ready to drink, Huel, YFood and Manna all have ready to drink things, but this video isn't really focusing on the ready to drink stuff. They're there and they're good. I'll put the prices up so that you can see what the prices are. I've covered before why I don't think the ready to drink stuff is perfect for me, but it may be perfect for you.
So in terms of flavour, I prefer mine not too sweet and more natural tasting. So I would say Protein Works, yeah, we can discount that. The flavours aren't bad. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with them. They're just not to my taste. All of them are very sweet, taste a little bit artificial. I get what they're going for. They weren't bad flavours. I just think if I had to have them every day, I'd get fed up with them pretty quickly. In terms of more natural flavours, essentially Huel, Queal and YFood are the best in terms of flavours. Huel, I've heard really mixed reviews. I don't mind them. I'm aware that there is that slightly stevia, slightly artificial sweetener taste in there, but it doesn't bother me too much. If that bothers you, then that's entirely your choice. Queal, I think, taste a whole lot more natural. There are some fantastic flavours. The Awesome Apple Pie, I absolutely adore. And the Chocolate Hazelnut Happiness, I think it's called, is essentially Nutella in a drink. So it is very sweet, but it's not sickly sweet, if that makes sense. And then the YFood, I really like. They do an apple pie one as well. It's apple and cinnamon. And it actually tastes like there's real apples in there. So I was really impressed with that. In terms of mixing flavors, Huel is the one I tend to mix flavors most. My favorite is 2 scoops of the coffee flavor with 1 scoop of the banana. All of the ones that have coffee flavors, they are caffeinated. They're roughly equivalent to 1 cup of coffee. So it's between 90 and 100 milligrams of caffeine, so about a cup of coffee, which opens a whole can of worms because how much caffeine is there in a cup of coffee, and it depends whether it's espresso, pour over, cafetiere. That's a story for another day, but essentially roughly equivalent to a cup of coffee. So yeah, I would say in terms of flavors, I would say Queal is probably my favorite because it has that combination of not too artificial and not too sweet. Huel, I would say, comes in a close second. And then YFood, I really like the flavors, but they do have that slightly artificial taste. In terms of texture, the YFood powder mixes up way too thin. It just tastes like a very watery drink. And I've tried reducing the amount of water in there, and no matter what you do, it always ends up much thinner than any of the others. The other issue I've found with YFood is if you leave it in the shaker for slightly too long,
it settles. And you get this sludgy bit at the bottom, which tastes very powdery and really not very nice. So you have to remember to keep shaking it up regularly. But that doesn't actually make the top bit any thicker, it just means you don't get the sediment at the bottom. Huel, a lot of people don't like the texture of Huel. I don't mind it, I think partly because I've just been using it for so long. It definitely has a more powdery, gritty, floury sort of texture to it. It's essentially like a very thin porridge. Queal is a better texture. The Protein Works did have a really nice texture. Actually, it was probably the most creamy of all of them, but again, the flavors, yeah, the Protein Works, the texture is really good, but I'm still not 100% sold on that one. So, in summary, I think my choice is Queal. It's cheapest, and I think the flavors are best. I don't like the fact that they only come in the small bags. If they did the big bags, they would win absolutely hand down. And there's one slight issue with Queal at the moment. I actually just placed an order for some more. Brexit, which we are all aware of, is stopping them being able to actually import them into the UK. So my shipment bounced back at the port. I got in contact, the guys there immediately wrote back and said, we're really sorry, we are having this issue. We've tried sending out, for some people tried multiple times and it just keeps bouncing back. We're not being able to get anything through the ports. So they are going to let me know as soon as they've got a fix for this. So what I'll do, at the moment, there'll be a link there saying shipping isn't working. Once it changes, I'll change that link to saying shipping is now working. So I would say Queal is my choice. Huel is probably, yeah, a very close second. I really like the Huel. I don't buy into the whole Hueligans, that's their term, not mine. This whole obsessive ethos using Huel in pancakes and cake mixes and all of those sorts of things. It's a really useful product for what it does, but I'm never going to become obsessive about it. What I like about it, the size of the bags means that I can just have a good stash there and I don't feel like I'm wasting plastic or anything like that. And it lasts a very long time. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's plain enough that you don't get bored of it, and it works well. YFood, what I think I might do is actually get some of the YFood ready drinks. Not a lot, because we've talked about my issues with that. But on the mornings where I just really need to quickly grab something, that might be a good option. And yeah, just Manna and the Protein Works. I might get some more of the Protein Works Diet Meal Replacement Extreme, because as a snack, if you are having a day and you've just burnt more calories than you're expecting and you're just feeling a bit hungry before your next meal, it's a way that you know you can have 200 calories, it fills you up pretty well, and you know you're going to have that very limited amount of calories. So that works pretty well in that respect. But I just don't know that it works as a meal replacement system. So I think that's about it. Yeah, I would say Queal, Huel literally just behind, YFood. As long as you're aware of the texture of the YFood, it's fine. It's the powder means that you get a very watery drink, but actually it's quite thirst quenching in the same way. I quite like it for that aspect. And otherwise, yeah. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey of trying all the different meal replacements. All of the videos are in the playlist, a normal person's reviews. So have a look at them if you want more details and more information about the flavors available and those sorts of things. But it's been fun. There are a few people I've had a few more recommended to me, and if there are any that you think I've missed, please put them in the comments below, because I'd love to try more, see whether there's anything that can beat Huel and Queal. But otherwise, thank you very much. Bye-bye.